Greetings, one and all present here. Today I will be having a research proposal on the topic the commercialization of sports, enhancing the growth while weakening the authenticity. So we are living in a generation where sports marketing is a huge deal. But the problem is because of making sports bigger and more engaging to fans, are we weakening the authenticity of sports? So let's dive a little bit deep on the topic. I'm going to go one by one and explain the word. What do you mean by commercialization? Commercialization is when we try to make a certain process or procedure bigger. In this case, sports, where we need more fan engagement, more revenue, more streaming, a lot of things, but and making it bigger. So that's what commercialization needs in this perspective. Authenticity. What I mean from authenticity from this perspective is that the originality. Like when the sports or when the particular sport has been started in the early 90s or early 80s, are we following the same rules or are we changing the rules just to make it more profitable and more fan engaging? Now let's dive into the summary of the research. So as I mentioned before, the title is the commercialization of sports, enhancing the growth while weakening the authenticity. What's my objective? Analyzing the commercialization's role in global exposure, evaluates its effects on authenticity and fan engagement, purpose strategies to preserve the crucial and ethical integrity. So the first LO, which is analyzing the commercialization's role in global exposure, that means that what are the new terms, like what are the new features in sports and new rules in the sports have been seen that been increase in the commercialization. So one certain example what I would like to give you is in the club cricket, let it be IPL, Big Bash, BPL, PSL and all, there's a new term called impact player. Impact player is a type of player, it's like a substitute where a batsman or a bowler can substitute for each other. For example, if you are looking at the current scenario, Rohit Sharma is a batsman and he can't bowl. So he can be substituted from another bowler. So that's called an impact player, right? This idea is not yet put into an international forefront, but has been very popular. And this is actually slowing or it is actually weakening the authenticity of the sport. And is that actually being more economical? It has been, because if a extra pair of bowler and extra pair of batsmen comes into play, the match would take a entirely different trajectory. Maybe that one extra bowler would have made a huge impact. Maybe that one extra batsman would have made a huge impact. So, but that is one, and how is that being more profitable? Evaluate the effective and fan engagement. As I said before, are these things actually increasing the fan engagement? Are these things actually bringing more views? Are these small rules and small changes actually bringing the revenue? Or why did they do it? Why did there certain changes in the sports having taken place? And towards the end, I would propose a strategy where I can tell that okay, if you make the small changes by keeping the authenticity, also increasing the commercialization. Is that possible? If yes, what can we do to maintain it both? And in the last context, as I mentioned in the first slide, what is commercialization? Is to boost revenue and visibility, but often comforts the athletes, distance the fans and building culture, the identity, especially underestimates the markets like women's sports and non-European regions. So even in this also there is some limitations which we'll get through. So this is the overview of what my project is, or my research proposal is. Aim of the study: the financial growth and global research. So this is not only from one country. I'm not only targeting only cricket or only IPL or only the certain leagues I've told you. I've also had a wider look in other sports. Even basketball also have slowly tried to bring in more substitutes. Football, I think before COVID, per game they only allowed 3, but right now it's going to 4 or maybe 5 according to the leagues. So these things are these smaller changes. Is it actually affecting the financial growth of the team? There have been studies stating yes, because of you can see more players. More players means more eyeballs, right? So you will be thinking, how is that possible? So think about in this scenario. You are a certain individual from a certain nation. In our state, in our condition, I'm an Indian, and I have one player who's playing for West Ham, and he's from India. He might be not a global star, but when he comes in a pitch, the Indian fans would actually have the eyeballs. And he will only come into a pitch as a third or a fourth or maybe fifth sub. Just because of the certain rule, he got a chance to play. Therefore, the people in India are really willing to see him in the pitch. That's increasing the eyeballs. And when the eyeballs increase, revenue increases. The next one is the impact of authenticity. If we make games like this, do you think it would be fun in the future? Just because to make games more easier for the athletes or games more fun for the visually fun for the viewers, is it actually hurting the sport itself? So in the future, do you think, or do we think there would be the change of rules would make the particular sport much more easier to play, and that time it would be in a state where we can't reverse it, where people don't want to watch it because sports are simple and easy. So for that one purpose, we have to make sure the authenticity of the sport remains the same and intact. Fan engagement and loyalty. I don't have to say much about it. As I said before, a lot of people want to see a particular player. A lot of viewers just care about that certain player in the team, and they only switch on the TV or switch on the mobile phones to see that particular player. That's called fan engagement. And when you talk about loyalty, a lot of people only want to watch a certain club's game, and they don't care about the other teams and other matches. So for that reason, we have to find a way to encourage all of those and bring it into one umbrella. Ethical and cultural considerations. When we have changes in our sports, that's also affecting the ethical reasons. It's going to be easier for some people. It might be easier for the sport itself. It might be easier for a particular league. So when a certain athlete starts his career from that particular league and he tries to move on, it will be really difficult for he or her to adapt to the situation. That's one of the major downfall of losing the authenticity of the sport. And when you talk about women's sport, we are not getting the huge magnification what that a male sport is getting. And we have to find a way that how we can bring up women's sport by not harming the authenticity, but also putting up in front, not in front, but also equal to me, so that even they are getting the eyeballs which they deserve. Now let's move on to the outcome and focus. The purpose and practices strategies for sports organization and stakeholders. Preserve ethical standards, maintain cultural relevance, protect fan authenticity while embracing modernization. As I mentioned before, we need change, but even if when we are bringing a change, we have to make sure that it's not harming the already existed and the history and the authenticity. I'm using this word authenticity like 100 times, but that should not be harmed. And let's move on to the research gap. Most of the studies are focused mainly on European male dominant sports. So when you talk about European male dominant sports, which will come on football, right? A lot of studies have been taken in Champions League, Europa Leagues, let it be Premier Leagues, or in like Syria, etc., which happen in the European region. There is only limited study which is taken in Asian, African, or even American regions. Even in America, soccer, which is the other term for football, The study is really less, and American football, not American football, soccer in called in America, and women's soccer is one of the most biggest dominant for soccer team in the women's industry. But why is not people talking about it? So we need a research on that. Surpass empirical data on fan reductions from drives of market. What are the things and how our fan engagement happens in sport? Different methods, from even the new era of betting to social media and getting access to sports anywhere, anytime. From the past where we can only watch in TVs or getting to do with newspapers or radio, and this generation we can get sports and we can watch live sports even in as simple as in the phone. How is that affecting the authenticity? Lack of strategic framework or ethical commercialization. And when you talk about lack of strategic frameworks and ethical commercialization in a lot of games, let it be cricket, let it be football, there's a lot of fixing happening, a lot of illegal fixing where people and referees, players, umpires are getting paid to take certain decisions and certain actions. How is that affecting sports in general? How sports is being more predictable nowadays? We can see most of the lower leagues are being so predictable that we know who's going to win from the starting of the league. And there have been a lot of studies taking place on how and why and from where are they getting the money, and how is that changing the entire framework of sports. If I give a quick example, Bangladesh Premier Leagues have been targeted for money laundering and also match fixing for multiple times, but the government or the board has not taken any actions to it. Why? Bangladesh Premier League is not getting a huge money like other leagues such as IPL being the most dominant. Even like smaller leagues like PSL, they are not getting the money. So if they want to run this facility, if they want to run, they require eyeball. Even the own locals, even the people in Bangladesh don't want to see their league, but they want to see leagues such as IPL and PSL or Big Bash. So why? So for maintaining that, they would take turns or they would take other such diversions that would get them money. And that is also one of the points to ruin the authenticity of the sport. And how this study fills the gap. Stakeholder voice. So one of the reasons that I want to do this study is like I want to go to stakeholder. I want to go to the brands which endorse this clubs or the leagues. For example, Tata. Tata has been the title sponsor for IPL. I want to know why they do it. Why they want to take IPL as the one of the platforms to do their marketing. The obvious answer would be like eyeballs, of course. But there are also some subtle details which actually would change the entire viewing. Focusing on underrepresented sectors like women's sports. Why does women's sports or women's sector is not getting the hype even though they are playing the same games, using the same rules, but why are they not getting the hype? And lastly, offers particular solution based on real world concerns. In my study, in my gap, I would be interviewing people from sports enthusiasts, brand partners, athletes, physicians, even fans, to take all their information and to get in a conclusion that how can we solve this huge problem. Problem statement. A study focusing on evaluating the market landscape, consumer trends, and competition precedent to the new product. Like one small change in cricket has made a huge impact. IPL got impact player, and from there every single leagues have been starting to use impact player. It is very sure that even international cricket would bring it. How is that changing? How is that new product or how is that new element brought a change? Scope of the study. Our study aims to pinpoint challenges, opportunities, and accessibility for the stake and insights. Like how does a study would be relevant in the future? how can I bring, or I would say, how would I bridge the gap between authenticity and commercialization? And lastly, will the study be relevant? Yes, because we are in a stage, or we are in a change where sports is all about money than fun, or sports is all about money than being relevant to people. It's not like the early 1980s where sports has been taken as a huge mantra for athletes, physical training, mental training, and other things. But right now, it's more on how to generate revenue and bring in eyeballs, and how to be a great advertisement for brands. Research question. How do sponsors and media rights drive their financial growth and global expansion of sports while simultaneously impacting authority, traditional values, and ethical standards? And what strategies can balance commercialization interests while preserving the society and cultural relevance? So, as I said, the changes in sports are only brought because of the sponsors and the big eyeballs which they're bringing. It's a brand who is forcing the sports or the organization to bring small changes so that more people will come and watch the sport. And what are the strategies? How can we bring a stop to it, or how can we preserve the sport but also encouraging people to watch what they're watching for the centuries to come? So these are my data collection tools. So it will be surveys, Google form, and Qualitex. Interview schedules with athletes, sponsors, and executives. So as I said before, I would be taking interviews not only from their athletes or sports analysts. I would be also taking interviews from brand partners, people who are sitting in as a marketing manager of certain companies who have been partnered up with sports organizations. Sampling. Surveys certified from random sampling of 200 to 250 sports followers from the age group of 18 to 60, and interviews with sampling of stakeholders of relevance. Same thing what I said, I would be doing the things like bringing brand partners. That's one of the key research in my place is like, I don't want to focus only on sports, I also want to focus on how globalization or how commercialization look into sports right now. So my goal is to just get both the side and find the positive and negative, and give a proper solution where both can go in the same boat and not ruining each other's reputation. My action plan. So this would be my action plan, and it would start from Feb and it will end at October, which is my final submission. Propose and approve feedback. Whatever interviews I'm getting, I would be taking feedbacks and which will be put into my paper. Literature review, methodology development. All of them will be studied all of the interviews would be studied, and by assessing by all of the given detail, I would be doing my literature review, methodology, and I'm also taking qualitative analysis. Interview setups and pilot survey. So some of the interviews I have to, the way I'm getting the interviews is by personal relations, LinkedIn, emails, and other sources. And surveys, I would be doing it either in sports classes, or I would be selecting few individuals or sports companies, whereas I would be giving this link or giving this interview, so they would be filling it and I will get an answer from them. Data analytics and thematic coding, and write-up and findings of the conclusion and final destination of the submission. So this is how I would be looking onto my paper, and this is a breakdown. This is my action plan of how to go through with my paper. So as I said, 1 second. sampling techniques. And I mentioned before, you can have a quick look on how I'm gonna go through surveys. One of the biggest way I'm gonna go with it, and interviews. And these are the few of the examples of people who I have been talking to right now, and in the past, and in the future also, who I have appointments with to do the interviews with. And this is the literature review. This is the key findings, and these are the studies which is there before that I have taken as a reference to do my paper. You can even have a look. It's mainly common studies on how the sports have been taking place and how different sports have been from the past century, the additions which they have, and few of the studies also talk about how marketing has been the biggest evil in sports and how they are demoralizing sports, and how athletes with the source of social media has getting discouraged and don't want to play certain sports, those kind of things. And this is the analysis. The commercial benefits, global branding job, fan identity, the commercial to customer rules, cultural and ethical conflicts, sports and branding, encouraging traditional values, general preferences, younger fans demanding authenticity and simplified sports. Some people really do want to play as what they are before. You may hear as our fathers or our grandfather was saying this sports was playing much more different in the current day and age. We can also see a lot of people comparing test cricket to T20 cricket. Like test cricket used to be much more harder. The old bowlers used to be much more aggressive. We need to get a balance of all the good, all the best out of all the past and future, and we need to find a way how we can put sports forward, but in a more profitable, but also fan followingly, but also keeping the authenticity of the culture. Oh, thank you, and this is the reference I used. Questions?
Yeah, we do have lots of questions. I'll just try to summarize with 2 or 3 points. The relevancy of your literature is very poor, Nandu. I was expecting a good reference from your end, as well as your methodology, which you mentioned and which you explained. It was not linked with your research topic, though you mentioned you are going to collect surveys where you will represent your descriptive analysis, and how about the interviews, how you gonna